Welcome to Vice and Easy, your podcast for all things Miami Vice, with your host, Marina.
Hello, and welcome back to Vice and Easy. This week, we're going to be breaking down Season 5, Episode 6, entitled Line of Fire. Crockett's back in full form. Little interesting wardrobe choices for court, if I were to say so myself. But let's get into it. I'm trying to think of any housekeeping things. I will be posting this on Friday, December 19th, and I will see y'all again in the new year. I'm looking forward to it as we round up Season 5. Now, if you're looking for a little bit of Christmas joy, I have some in my heart, but I have not put on a podcast, but definitely check out the Vice of Miami podcast for their super exciting Christmas episode with some familiar voices. Now, let's get down to our episode. For Line of Fire, per IMDb, a drug kingpin on trial for murder puts $1 million contract out on a punk rocker who is the star witness for the prosecution. The FBI want Crockett and Tubbs to safe house the witness, but keeping him alive is going to be a challenge. Now let's check in on Crockett. He is back. He is wearing a t-shirt with a ripped collar, which I did a lot of that in like 2017, 2018, where I'd cut out right below the collar and kind of make a triangle. This was very much in fashion then, and actually it was great for bartending, because especially with some of like the stuffy, really heavy branded shirts, it was a way to get a little bit of air when it was hot. But to see him on the stand like this, and this is definitely a cultural thing that was a little bit of a shock. I've mentioned this before. Court dress etiquette versus the U.S. and Canada. Like, I was just on a jury 2 months ago, and I was shocked. Grown adults were showing up to jury duty in sweatsuits, Crocs. I was like, I understand we're not on trial here. We don't need to look our best. But, like, I don't know if I'd be wearing Crocs to a courthouse, you know? Like, I wasn't wearing heels. I was wearing boots. I was wearing flats. I think I wore sneakers 2 days because my feet started to hurt. I was an alternate for 5 days. And, yeah, I was just really surprised. Like I said, it's just a different system, but traffic court, that's where you'll get some of the wild outfits. My friend was also telling me that landlord-tenant court in Toronto, actually, a lot of people would show up in like bathrobes and curlers in their hair. I was like, okay, I get it. But like, you know, especially, you know, you want to be perceived the way you want to be perceived. So Crockett in the denim jacket. Also, it's like a ripped denim jacket. It's kind of like acid wash at 80s. It's not like, as a Canadian, I guess this is very near and dear to me. It's not like classic, tailored, you know, elegant dress denim jacket, you know, for your finest dinners with dignitaries and such. So that took me out. The other thing that really took me out is, you know how much I loved the courthouse from the Harvey Firestein episode, where it was like purple and silver. We don't get that here. It's a little bit more, you know, a little bit more tame, but I was really hoping for it. You are going to see a lot of familiar faces this episode. First off, the prosecutor. I was like, isn't that Caroline's husband, or is that just like kind of like another nerdier older white guy? No, it's the same guy who played Caroline's husband, who wanted to adopt Billy. I get that maybe the budget is diminishing and writers have left, but that was kind of funny. Then also the defense lawyer is the same guy that nursed Crockett back to health, and he's been on a few Miami Vice episodes. So I was like, that just took me out a little bit. But let's actually get to the episode. I do apologize. Crockett is talking about a former criminal informant named Dexter Sims and what had happened to him. And he says, before they burned him. Then I realized they mean literally. Whew. Luckily, they didn't show it like Sons of Anarchy, but you can kind of see who we're dealing with and who the kingpin on trial, what he's capable of. So as Crockett is telling them about criminal informants and how this works, yada, 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 then the same guy that nursed Crockett back to health has a confidential folder. And he is reading the contents and questioning Crockett's mental acuity and his health.
How's your health, Detective?
Fine.
Recovered from your breakdown?
It wasn't a breakdown.
According to this, you went nuts. You became a raging psychopath who couldn't remember his own name.
I was undercover.
You always try to murder your partners when you're undercover?
Objection, Your Honor. Irrelevant.
Overruled. Isn't it a fact that you shot Detective Tubbs with intent to kill? Yes or no, Detective?
I don't remember.
This is how I feel when I'm thinking about this.
He was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
That is my take on the Burnett arc. Crockett's pissed, and after he gets off the stand, he asks the prosecutor how the defense got a hold of those files. The prosecutor, a.k.a. his ex-wife's new husband, who tried to adopt his son, but they're just not going to mention that because it's a completely different character, says that money talks. The drug kingpin, oh my God, I cannot say that word, kingpin, wants to talk to Crockett. And it's not friendly, and he's definitely gloating.
Sorry, pal, I haven't had my shots.
It's about Dexter Sims.
I chopped that garbage up myself for you as a present.
Not the best day for Crockett as he and Tubbs leave the courthouse, both looking great. Again, I've said what I've said about Crockett's outfit for court, but outside they look like $1 million. Tubbs has literally loosened up his collar and unbuttoned his shirt, looking great as they're just really down, and they just really see the corruption, the unfairness for what it is, and it's definitely getting to them, as it will this entire season.
Message.
But it is about to get a lot worse when a masked man driving by in the passenger side of a car opens fire on the bus transporting the jury. I actually want to do a little bit more research into this because there was an episode I recently watched of The Streets of San Francisco where they kidnap a jury bus and take them out to the Golden Gate Bridge. And obviously, I was not in a grand jury trial or anything that scandalous, no RICO or anything of the sort. So we just came and went separately. We just couldn't talk to each other, so forth. But yeah, I could definitely see how there needs to be heightened security in these kinds of cases, these kinds of trials for the jury. So, well, with that, we go into the credits. Let's see what's going on because the feds are in town and they want Vice's help. Interesting. Let's see how this goes.
A witness saw Quintero pump 4 rounds into a DEA agent. We've got him. He's scheduled to testify in 3 days.
If he lives. Quintero's put out $1 million contract out on him.
Every shooter in the country is going to be trying to get him. We think he'd be safer with you.
Whoa, back up. My hearing must be shot. You're telling me that the FBI is going to turn a star witness over to locals for protection?
Well, that's the last place they're going to look for him.
Whenever the FBI is featured on Miami Vice, what could go wrong? Well, we'll get into it. But first, let's meet our star witness because he's looking forward to his vacation in Miami.
Hey, who you got?
Keith Mollis.
You told me you guys were Vice. I figured, hey man, that's ripping. Vice dudes know what's happening, right? Not like these G dudes. They're embalmed. I mean it, man. Night of the living dead. At least you guys don't dress like G dudes. So, I hear Miami's a pretty Martian scene. Insane clubs, huh? Maybe this won't be so bad.
Yeah, man. I don't think he realized he has that kind of bounty on his head. They'll explain that later. So he's looking ready to party, not realizing that, no, he is a target. And again, the generational gap is definitely going to be evident this episode. It actually ends pretty nicely. I'm aware that Miami Vice premiered 40 years ago. I'm aware that I was watching this in reruns in high school. But this episode is so dated, not in a bad way, but like here's the first example.
Yeah, I heard it about 10 years ago. His speed metal crap is just warmed over Hendrix riffs. Played twice as fast and half as well.
Him referencing Jimi Hendrix as being a decade ago. Now, if you want to get into details, Hendrix died in 1970, so...
Boy, I really hope somebody got fired for that blunder.
Yeah, that just took me out. I was like, a decade ago? What? Because I'm thinking Woodstock 1969 as something I heard of growing up, and like hearing about Woodstock 99 when I was a tween, like it took me out. But there's going to be a few more examples of that in the episode, so let's get into it. We are staying at the Biltmore. It is beautiful. The one in LA is really beautiful and historic too, but this one has a fountain in front of it. Looks so nice. But you could tell, contrasting this with like such a young, angsty punk rocker, it's just kind of funny. So, of course, what does he do? He gets to his room and just puts on MTV for some heavy metal music videos and lies down with his shoes on top of the blanket. Then afterwards, he is hanging out in the living room with Crockett and Tubbs over at one table while he is pouring cola into sugar cats. I do not know if this cereal ever existed. I never saw it growing up, but the fact that it's like a punk rocker, it's a lion. It's a punk rocker lion on the box. I love it. And once again, this clash continues. But the thing that took me out was this.
The Expos. 2-1. Why?
Oh, rest in peace, Expos. But let's get to how Crockett and Keith are getting along.
Screw up the world.
No, you're just looking for a good reason to roll over.
Hey, excuse me for living, all right?
American League, etc.
Done.
On the white side, the Brewers, Whiskey Park in Chicago, Steve Carlton. Wind up and
You believe that?
line outside.
Do you believe what we just heard?
Yeah.
Mark Dubas.
Kind of reminds me of you.
Kansas City Royals shut up.
Hey.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I've earned my attitude.
There definitely is that sentiment, and I still feel it today. Like, you know, back in my day, things were harder, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have this, I didn't have that. As opposed to kind of taking yourself out of the equation, being like, okay, like, what are the new challenges that face the younger generation? As opposed to, you know, dismissing them or thinking that they have it easier, to really think about it and not just judge from your perspective. But Keith and Crockett are not going to get there right yet, because Keith is going to put on a hat and a coat, like a duster. What's with the dusters in season 5? Was it just hanging on the wardrobe rack? He's sneaking out of his hotel room, which actually I made a gif of him jumping onto the roof. And he gets down. We see him talk with one of the valets, and then gets in a taxi, runs off. Zwitek calls it in, and Crockett and Tubbs go down to speak with the valet. The valet told him that he talked about 2 different clubs, so they split up and take 2 different clubs. Crockett is going to be the one who's going to find him in this club with a live band. That is Madam Axe by Rugged Edge. When Keith sees a beautiful blonde girl with big tight curls and a little leather cap making eyes at him across the crowded mosh pit floor, he goes up to her, they exchange punk rock pleasantries, drags her on the floor, awkwardly dance, until old man Crockett comes and ruins the fun.
Hey, who's this glam man?
God, he thinks.
Oh, man, I gotta start going to church.
So, like we've all experienced, we're not being dragged home because they're no fun and they don't want to see us living our lives. It's for our own good. And Crockett tries to explain that back at the hotel.
One metalhead from another. To them, we all look alike.
Well, that may be so. Except that you have one outstanding feature.
What's that?
You're worth $1 million. Dead.
Yeah, I understand they didn't want to scare him, but I think that's what maybe you should have led with when you first met him. And why you guys are being so strict and why there's so many security measures and so many protocols put into place. I think that would resonate quite a bit. However, we see that mysterious blonde parked outside the hotel calling in and telling some mysterious person on the other end of the line that he's staying at the Biltmore. Shortly after, next scene, 2 guys come in, guns a-blazing. Luckily, Crockett and Tubbs are able to shoot them. Keith is fine, but I made a gif of him opening the door of just how shell-shocked he is. Now that they know that their spot is not as secure as they thought, they have to move. The blonde girl from the club is outside the hotel watching when Vice takes Keith. She follows. Doesn't take too long for them to close her in on the road. I also I got a picture. It was hard to make a great picture of this, but I got a picture of it nonetheless of Crockett driving on the grass around, and then it looks like he pulls up in front. But I would bet decent money that that is not Don Johnson in the suit pointing the gun at the woman. Does not look like it. The pants are way too big. Doesn't look like him. Could be a stunt double. I don't know. This doesn't track with me. Well, she pulls out her FBI badge. So now they got to make a visit to the FBI. The FBI say that they put her on just as extra security, but clearly not that secure if 2 gunmen were able to barge into the hotel room. So naturally, they're not happy. Crockett is not there. He is with Keith. And Tubbs is going to be completely honest with the FBI and what he thinks of their operation. He is not giving up that location.
You booked a 3-day tour. Daily. No refunds, no exchanges.
I'm warning you, Tubbs. I'll bring you up on charges.
If you do that as well as you run security, then I ain't got nothing to worry about.
Amazing response. Love to see it. Now, where did Crockett and Keith go? What's a secure place that no one would think to look for him? The St. Vitus dance. They've gone fishing. Once again, we're going to get a lot of butting heads, but I think this is really funny. And I also like the segue from Iron Maiden to Derek and the Dominoes.
Stay here tonight.
Hey, what are you doing?
Try some of that.
Eric Clapton.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so he's good.
Let's let Crockett and Keith enjoy their fishing trip and check back in at OCB.
Not very popular with the feds.
To hell with them. They're the ones that broke the deal. Look, no one is going to know where that kid is this time.
The schedule's right. They should be at Elliott Key.
And they're coming in at Compton Point tomorrow night at 8.
Be there.
Yes, good for Tubbs. I love that. Now let's check back in with Crockett and Keith and see how they're bonding. They're still butting heads a little bit, but it seems like Crockett's trying to get through to him.
Doesn't it get you?
Yeah, it gets to me. Every damn day.
So why you do it?
Make the world safe. For children.
That makes me really sad, and that does hit home. You know how I feel about Crockett's relationship with Billy, and yes, I'm trying to see that he really just wants to keep his family safe, and he thinks by not being an active part of the family, he's doing so, and that's kind of his redemption, is that he can make the world safe for other people and other children because he was worried that he couldn't with his own. That is sad. That is sad. But it is nice to see this dynamic. Again, Crockett, like all crotchety older people talking to a younger person, I knew someone like you back in the day, blah, 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 like all this idealism, like blah, 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 why are you so against it? But unfortunately, a little bit later, a helicopter comes overhead, which is very weird. Crockett's naturally on edge, as he should be, because we have some guys. We have one guy being assisted by another guy shooting up the boat. And then there's just one guy driving super chill. But yeah, I would be a little bit nervous to be driving that helicopter if I was not part of this operation. I'll say that. Luckily, Keith does come to the rescue, finds a flare gun, and Crockett is able to use that flare gun to blow up the helicopter and the enemies inside. Keith naturally is super freaked out. This is the second time that he's supposed to be in protective custody where someone has gotten the coordinates and known where he's staying. He's freaked out, and he thinks that it's Tubbs.
We were at Elliott Key.
Nobody but Rico.
Maybe he sold us.
You can just forget that, pal. Just forget it.
Something's wrong. It's supposed to go like this. I mean it, Sonny. Something's definitely not right.
Chill out, man. We'll blend in with the coastal traffic. We'll be at Compton Point by 8.
That's nuts, man. It's a setup. I'm telling you. They're gonna be waiting for us.
Nobody's gonna be waiting for us but Rico.
Forget it, man.
Keith.
I ain't going.
Keith.
I ain't going.
Hey,
It's
man.
insane. Come on.
Keith. Hey, listen to me. Listen up. We're gonna make it. We're gonna make it.
Now, back at OCB, Tubbs is a little worried because he hasn't heard from Crockett. They weren't at the point they were supposed to be. Naturally, he doesn't know what's going on. So they're a little bit freaked out. He wants to contact them. He's trying the marine operator, which I must sounds like a pretty cool job. I guess they just radio out signals trying to get different boats and whatnot. But yeah, obviously Crockett might not want to answer that call, especially if people are actively trying to kill him and the person that he is watching. So back at court, a note is slipped to the gangster. He is not happy to get this revelation in the note that obviously his star witness against him, the star witness for the prosecution, is still alive. He is not happy. He's involving his lawyer in it, who does not want to get involved. But when you're defending a guy of that magnitude who has burned people, possibly alive, is from what I'm insinuating. They probably couldn't say that because it's network television in the 80s, but I'm sure that poor Derek Sims did not go down smoothly. Oof. And the Kingpin basically ends it by saying that kid doesn't leave Miami to his lawyer. Tubbs is up on a helicopter. He goes up and back trying to find out where Crockett and the St. Vitus and Keith are. Can't get anywhere. Back in the St. Vitus stance, Keith is admiring the Molotov cocktails. And this is where they get to bond a little bit more.
We used to chuck them at Metallica concerts. Just kidding. My old man showed me. He won a medal with one of these. Korea. Him and his men were pinned down. He made a Molotov cocktail and took out a machine gun.
Where is he now?
He's dead.
It's tough, Brad.
That is sweet that they're bonding over Molotov cocktails. Actually, I think that's very sweet. And again, they are very nice looking Molotov cocktails. I've never made one myself, never needed to, but yeah. Also, the mention of the Korean War also just put the date into perspective as well. But let's check back in because our next scene, get ready for it. This is the time where I'm gonna drop in and tell you to go check out the gallery. I do apologize. I put an editor's note. I'm still having cat keyboard issues where the aspect ratio on the video itself is fine, but the screenshots keep getting stretched out. And I'm trying to rectify it. It was fine last episode. It's back to weird. Maybe my cat just jumped on it while I wasn't looking. So I do apologize. The images are a little stretched out, but there are a lot of butts. So maybe that'll help. As Crockett is dealing with Keith, we see Switek and Tubbs hang out on a patio. They're watching someone that Izzy has fingered as an informant for the FBI, and so they can try to see who this mole is. Because we get a great shot of, again, a girl just getting up from her table, an extra getting up from her table with the thong bikini on. Again, great butts, in great shape. Everybody in this episode, especially, you could definitely see I did put a lot of butt imagery into the gallery. Unfortunately, one or two of them did not load, so I'll try to put that on Facebook, because there's also another great scene on the beach of this extra where he just catches a football and then just walks hand in hand with this girl who's also in a thong bikini. And I'm like, were you playing catch with someone? And then we're like, hey, it's okay, my girl's here. But yeah, it just seemed a little funny. They were probably doing that like 20 takes, and they're like, whatever, just. But again, great butts. There's a guy in the bikini bottoms looking great too, and like multicolored. So great bodies this episode, I will say. As the guy that they're watching, he starts to get up, but then they notice Bates from the FBI, again, a full suit in the daytime. Way to not draw attention to yourself as a mole. He drops something in the garbage can where the guy that they're watching goes to pick it up. They know exactly what's happening. Tubbs and Switek split up to get them. This is when a shootout occurs from Bates on Ocean Boulevard while all these poor people are just trying to go about their day, go to the beach. And then Bates pulls a very Grand Theft Auto move, carjacks someone, speeds off while shooting at Rico, who is protecting two beachgoers. But they are able to get the guy. This guy is so funny, and I don't think it's intentional. I almost peed my pants.
Team minimum. A deal's the only chance you got. So when's the next hit going down?
Anybody going up for cigarettes?
Oh man, so like they're not really getting anywhere. So Tubbs and Switek go whisper in the corner, and then Tubbs says that he's free to go and that, you know, he won't tell Quintero what's going on. Brings up Dexter Sims, and again, a hilarious response.
No, Felix, don't worry about Quintero. I'll make sure he understands.
Understands what?
That you didn't roll on him?
I didn't tell you nothing.
I know that. It's Carlos I'm worried about.
Carlos and I are like brothers.
That's real good, man, because Carlos is going to wonder how you walked out of here. He's going to wonder who fingered Bates, but I talked to him.
Hey, man, you can't do that.
So long, Felix. Try not to think about Dexter Sims.
That was cold, man.
Oh my God, this guy's like the unexpected comedic relief of this episode. In other OCB news, they are able to get a bug that someone has put in Castillo's office. He finds that, which means that unfortunately, Bates has heard where the meeting point is going to be. Tubbs is going to race out and try to beat him there. We cut back to the St. Vitus dance, where I was very impressed at the knot abilities of Keith Mullis as they dock. Just impressed. I'm not sure what knot it is. All that information has flown out the window from when I learned it at like 9-10 years old, but impressed nonetheless. Now, this may look like a quiet evening that's about to happen. That is not going to happen because they are ambushed. It's actually kind of funny. The guy that's shooting at them is kind of dressed like Crockett with the gray blazer and the white pants. Oh, man. And it's a pretty bad shootout. Luckily, Keith and Crockett are okay. Keith really steps up, helps out. But the St. Vitus is shot along with
hell no! They shot my boombox!
The sound of the boombox hitting the water just made me laugh. So Bates is on the scene. What they don't see is what we see as the audience. We see Bates kind of coming around the corner, obviously knowing the guy that's shooting, then shoots the guy that's shooting at Crockett. That was a very long-winded and roundabout way to say that. And then he comes up and like, hey, is everyone okay? Is anyone hurt? It's Bates. Keith is so happy. He is running off the boat, on the ground, touching the dirt, until...
That's the last boat ride I'm ever gonna take.
Got that right.
Unfortunately, I don't want to make fun of the ADR when he's also getting shot in that same breath. Bates shoots him. Luckily, Tubbs is there, gets there right in time. They take down Bates, and Crockett gets Tubbs to call for a medevac, which is on the way, thankfully, as Keith is transported. And you can see just like how heartbroken and how tough this is for Crockett. He's trying to make sure that he gets through. Then this is also a trope I really don't like when someone goes to the surgeons like, we got to save him. That is their job. Like, I'm sorry. This person went to school for how many years? They operate every day at work. They know how stressful it is. They deal with serious injuries. They're trying to keep everybody alive. Like, I understand you want to make sure that the person you know survives, but like, that's kind of insulting to be like, well, this one, he has to live. Surgeons don't want to kill people. They do not want to have people injured or dead. That's why insurance costs so much. So I just kind of don't like that. And Crockett does that in this scene. Then the lawyer, also Carolyn's husband, comes in seeming a little chipper because I understand from his side it is, but for Crockett, he's watching this young kid on the verge of death.
I want to thank you both. You made a major contribution in the Quintero case, despite this unfortunate incident.
Unfortunate incident?
Sonny.
Slimy
Hey,
dog.
Sonny. Back off, man. Sonny.
That kid is worth 10 of you. You understand me?
Back off, man. Back off. So can you postpone the trial until he recovers?
That won't be necessary.
Now, that sounds flippant, but then he explains why that won't be necessary. Turns out that the Keith Mullis that we know is not the actual Keith Mullis that's going to testify against Quintero. Keith Mullis is really a DEA agent. Unfortunately for Keith Mullis, he is terrified in court. Again, I've said this a million times. To testify and look into the eyes of a known murderer with tons of charges and tons of connections who has burned people alive. I would also be kind of scared. But I must say, the casting is great because the guy who's on the stand and the guy that we know as Keith Mullis look very similar. The Keith Mullis that we know is like a little bit more punk rockery, but also, to be fair, he's dressing up for court. Isn't that nice, Crockett? He's not showing up in a denim vest. The Keith Mullis on the stand is not able to identify Quintero. Thereby, he is not testifying. But we're going to leave that in that universe as we check back in with Crockett and with the other Keith, pseudo Keith. Luckily, at the hospital, Crockett is there when he wakes up and he's able to comfort him, and he tells him that the real Keith Mullis was able to testify. Maybe they didn't hear the testimony, but you know what? That's also not something you want to tell someone who's very fragile and sick, and I get that. But it's a very sweet moment between the two.
No. No way, man.
My father.
Yeah.
He was a cop. Killed on duty.
He would have been very proud of you.
I screwed up.
No way, man. You did a fine job. You did a fine job.
You mean it?
Damn right. You can back me up anytime, pal.
Oh, man. And after that really sweet exchange and, you know, hearing that Wallace testified and that Crockett says that Quintero is going to be locked up for a long time, he flatlines and a whole slew of doctors and nurses rush in. Then we cut back to court where the judge releases Quintero for lack of evidence. I thought I had a clip of this. Maybe I deleted it because, again, I'm no legal expert, but with discovery and all that, was this case really dependent on the testimony of this witness? And that's why it had to be thrown out. I guess that was the crux of the case. And if the guy couldn't testify, they can't go further with it. And there's no way to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he did it if the key witness is not testifying. But yeah, I was like, whew, that sucks. Outside, Crockett walks right up to Quintero. You can tell he's grinding his teeth because you can see the jaw muscles popping out. And he says, "It ain't over till it's over." That sucks for Crockett. That absolutely sucks that his criminal informant was burned alive and this guy just gets to walk. Whew. Oh, man. So luckily this episode ends on a positive note as Joey, the D agent who is posing as Keith, is feeling much better. He's recovering well. And Crockett and Tubbs bring him a boombox and some tapes. And it's a really sweet way to end the episode. And the final freeze frame is like Crockett smiling, going out the door. And luckily, that is not the last we're going to see of Joey. And with that, let's break it down. Ooh, all right. So best dress, even though I was making fun of Crockett, I really love that picture of him and Rico walking out of the courthouse. Windswept, Rico's shirt unbuttoned, Crockett's torn t-shirt and denim jacket, but they both look like $1 million, and it just kind of is like a return to form, especially because Crockett wasn't in the last episode, Baraska. This makes me feel really happy. And you'll notice I mentioned this on the gallery. If the pictures look like garbage, I do apologize. Again, my new editor, aka my cat, got back into it again because last episode, Baraska, I could grab the screen grabs at the correct aspect ratio, no problem. And the video turns out okay, but it's the screen grabs that are still stretched. So I'm working on it, but let's get back into it. Best dressed man, I'm going to give that to Tubbs Solo, rocking the mock turtleneck when he's talking with Castillo. Obviously, our wild card is going to be Keith because I really do enjoy his outfits. It's not too garish, it's not too much, but I really like his little black sunglasses on the boat. It's just such a contrast with Crockett in his element. Best dressed woman is going to be our beautiful undercover FBI agent. I also do wish I could have gone a little bit more at the club. That would have been nice if they expanded that scene a little bit because that did look like a fun club. But let's break it down. Speaking of the club, with music. My song of the episode personally is going to be Layla, but I actually did like the Rugged Edge band. They were the ones that were playing Madam Axe at the nightclub we just spoke about. Then the other songs included were Stigmata by Ministry. That was the music video that Keith was watching when they got into the hotel. And then Only the Good Die Young, naturally by Iron Maiden on the boat. But naturally, I'm going to give that to Layla. Quotes. This episode has quite a few. It's hard for me to pick my top 3, but here's quote number 1.
Not very popular with the feds. To hell with them.
Oh my God, the delivery is just perfect. Oh man. Quote number 2.
Anybody going out for cigarettes?
Well, let's. Oh my God. All right, well, let's check back in with him because he's going to be quote number 3.
So long, Felix. Try not to think about Dexter Sims.
That was cold, man.
Oh Oh man, this guy is a formidable contender, but I'm going to give the quote of the episode to our man, Tubbs, who's had it, who is all of us in December.
Not very popular with the feds.
To hell with them.
And with that energy carrying you through the rest of December, I want to say thank you so much for listening, for supporting, for subscribing, for leaving 5-star reviews, for finding me wherever you get your podcast, for liking and subscribing on YouTube, and for following me on all things social at Vice and Easy. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, and I cannot wait because we're going to get weird when I come back in 2025 with Season 5, Episode 7, Asian Cut. Thank you, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, and as always.
Hey man, Miami Vice is #1 new show.